Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the UES Horizon and watched the massive space station grow larger on the main screen. Nexus Station looked like nothing he had ever seen before. The structure stretched for miles in every direction, with towers that twisted like silver ribbons and platforms that glowed with strange lights. Ships from across the galaxy docked at ports that seemed to shift and change as he watched. "First time seeing it never gets old," said Lieutenant Amy Carter from her science station. She was young but brilliant and had been studying alien technology for years. The Zeltharians built most of the main structure using some kind of crystal growth technology. The other races added their own sections over time. Morrison nodded but felt nervous in his stomach. Today was the day that would decide humanity's future in the galaxy. Ambassador Helen Brooks was already on the station, preparing for the big meeting with the Galactic Council. After years of planning and hoping, humans were finally going to ask for full membership in the galactic community. "Captain, we're getting a signal from the docking authority," reported Communications Officer Pete Davis. "They're directing us to Port 7 on the Outer Ring." "The Outer Ring," Carter said quietly. "That's where they put the less important visitors." Morrison tried not to think about what that might mean. The UES Horizon was Earth's newest and best ship, but he knew it looked primitive compared to the alien vessels they had passed on their way in. Human technology had come far in the 50 years since they first achieved faster-than-light travel, but it still felt like they were children, playing with toys. The docking process took an hour because their ship systems had trouble talking to the alien computers. Everything had to be done manually, while alien technicians watched and seemed to whisper among themselves. Morrison could not shake the feeling that they were being judged and found lacking. Once they were secured, Morrison met Ambassador Brooks in the main airlock. She was a tall woman with gray hair who had spent her whole career preparing for this moment. Behind her stood Admiral Rick Stone, the head of Earth's small but growing space defense force. The Admiral looked uncomfortable in his dress uniform and kept checking his watch. "Ready for this, Captain?" Brooks asked as the airlock opened to reveal the station's interior. The first thing that hit Morrison was the smell. Not bad, but completely alien. The air felt thick and had a metallic taste that made his teeth ache. The corridor beyond was huge, with a ceiling that disappeared into darkness above. Lights moved along the walls in patterns that hurt to look at for too long. Their escort was a Zeltharian named Zexathon, who stood nearly 8 feet tall and looked like he was made of living crystal. His voice sounded like wind chimes when he spoke through the translation device on his chest. "Follow me, humans. The council is waiting." They walked for what felt like miles through corridors filled with beings that Morrison could barely understand. There were the Corvan soldiers with their thick scales and glowing red eyes who carried weapons that hummed with energy. The ethereal collective members floated past like clouds of light that whispered in voices that seemed to come from inside his head. Insect-like creatures from the hegemony of Voss clicked and buzzed as they moved on too many legs. Blue-skinned humanoids from the Stellar Federation watched everything with eyes that seemed to calculate and measure. The council chamber was a vast dome with seating that spiraled up toward the ceiling. Representatives from 5 major civilizations sat in sections that matched their species' needs. The humans were given a small platform near the bottom that felt more like a dock for criminals than a place for diplomats high. Counselor Zexathon took his place at what was clearly the most important seat and gestured for Ambassador Brooks to begin. The chamber fell silent except for the quiet hum of translation devices. Brooks stepped forward and began the speech she had practiced 1,000 times. She talked about humanity's achievements and their desire to join the galactic community. She spoke about what humans could offer and what they hoped to learn. She explained that Earth was ready to take its place among the stars and work for peace and progress. When she finished, the silence stretched for long seconds. Then something happened that Morrison had never expected. The aliens began to laugh. It started with a sound like breaking glass from the Zeltharian section. The Corvan representatives made deep rumbling noises that shook the floor. The ethereal beings flashed with colors that somehow felt mocking. The insect creatures clicked and buzzed in what could only be amusement. Even the usually serious Stellar Federation members made sounds that their translators turned into chuckles. High Counselor Zexton stood, and his crystal form caught the light in a way that seemed deliberate. "Humans," he said, and the word sounded like an insult in his chime voice. "You call yourselves ready for galactic civilization. But we have watched your transmissions for decades. We have seen your wars and your chaos. You are barely evolved primates who stumbled upon space travel by accident. War Marshal Grexelok of the Corvin Empire rose from his seat like a mountain of muscle and scales. Your ships are primitive metal boxes held together with hope and desperation. Your weapons are crude projectile throwers that would not scratch our armor. You speak of joining us, but you cannot even keep peace on your own world. The ethereal speaker's voice seemed to come from everywhere at once. Physical beings like you are limited by matter and energy. You have not evolved beyond the need for solid forms. Perhaps in 1,000 years you might be ready to observe true civilization. The hegemony representative clicked and buzzed while her translator spoke in a flat mechanical voice. Your biology is interesting, but your minds are chaotic and unpredictable. You would disturb the order that has kept peace in this galaxy for 3,000 years. The Stellar Federation delegate was the last to speak, and his words felt like the final nail in a coffin. We have analyzed your tactical capabilities and found them lacking. Your military doctrine is inconsistent, and your strategies are based on emotion rather than logic. You are not ready for the responsibilities of galactic citizenship. Ambassador Brooks tried to respond, but Zexton cut her off with a gesture that made the crystal in his arm flash bright white. The Council has decided. Humanity will be granted observer status only. You may watch and learn, but you will have no voice in galactic affairs. Perhaps in time you will prove yourselves worthy of more. The vote was unanimous and quick. 5 civilizations that had never agreed on anything. All agreed that humans were not ready to join them as equals. Morrison felt his hands clench into fists as he watched centuries of human dreams die in a few minutes. As they walked back to their ship in silence, Admiral Stone finally spoke. They think we're weak, he said quietly. They think we're primitives who got lucky with technology we don't deserve. Ambassador Brooks nodded, and her face was hard as stone. Let them think that, she said. Sometimes being underestimated is an advantage. Morrison did not know what she meant, but something in her voice made him think that this was not the end of the story. It was just the beginning. 3 months after the humiliating council meeting, Captain Jake Morrison received an emergency message while his ship patrolled the outer colonies. The transmission came from New Haven, a mining settlement on the edge of human space. The message was short and terrifying. Pirates had attacked the colony and were demanding surrender. Morrison ordered the UES Horizon to jump to New Haven immediately. During the 2-day journey, he studied the reports coming in from other colonies. 7 different settlements had been hit in the past month. The attacks followed the same pattern. Fast ships with advanced weapons would appear, demand surrender, and take whatever they wanted before disappearing. What bothered Morrison was how organized these pirates seemed. Real pirates were usually desperate and sloppy, but these attackers moved like a military force. Their ships used energy weapons that were too advanced for common criminals, and their tactics were too good for random raiders. Lieutenant Amy Carter had been analyzing the attack patterns, and her findings made. Morrison's suspicions grow stronger. Captain, these aren't random pirate raids, she said as she showed him her data. Look at the timing and the targets. They're testing our defenses and learning our response times. Before Morrison could respond, the ship dropped out of hyperspace near New Haven. What they found was not what he expected. Instead of a destroyed colony, they saw 6 alien ships surrounding the mining station. The ships were clearly Corvin design with their distinctive angular hulls and red energy signatures. Sir, those aren't pirate vessels, reported Tactical Officer Dan White. Those are Corvin military ships with their identification codes scrubbed. Morrison felt his anger rise. The Corvin Empire was using unofficial forces to test human defenses while maintaining the fiction that these were just pirate attacks. It was a coward's way of making war. All hands to battle stations, Morrison ordered. Let's show these fake pirates what humans can do. The alien ships moved to intercept them, and Morrison had to admit they looked impressive. Corvin vessels were larger than human ships, and their weapons could punch through most known armor. Their shields could absorb massive amounts of damage, and their engines were faster than anything humans had built. On paper, the UES Horizon should not have stood a chance, but the aliens did not know about the modifications that had been made to human ships over the past few years. Dr. Sam Mitchell and his team had been working in secret facilities hidden throughout human space. They had studied every piece of alien technology they could find and had developed countermeasures that no one expected. When the first Corvin ship fired its main weapon, The energy beam struck the Horizon's shields and something impossible happened. Instead of breaking through or being absorbed, the beam seemed to bend around the ship like water flowing around a rock. The adaptive shielding that Dr. Mitchell had designed learned from each attack and adjusted to defend against it. The Corvin. Commander must have thought his weapons had malfunctioned because he ordered his other ships to fire. All 6 vessels opened up with everything they had, but the result was the same. The human ship seemed untouchable. Morrison smiled as he gave his next order. Return fire. Let's see how they like our new toys. The Horizon's weapons were different from anything the aliens had seen before. Instead of energy beams or plasma bolts, the human ship fired solid projectiles at incredible speeds. The kinetic rounds punched right through the Corvin shields as if they were not there at all. Energy shields were designed to stop energy weapons, but they could not stop simple mass moving at high velocity. The first Corvin ship exploded in a ball of fire and debris. The second ship tried to maneuver away, but Morrison had studied alien tactics for months. He knew that Corvin pilots followed strict patterns based on their military training. Human pilots like Dan White had learned to be unpredictable. Attack pattern random, Morrison ordered. Don't let them figure out what we're doing. The Horizon moved in ways that violated every rule of space combat. It spun and twisted like a fighter instead of a cruiser. It attacked from angles that made no tactical sense and changed direction without warning. The Corvin ships tried to respond, but their computers could not calculate proper targeting solutions against such erratic movement. One by one, the alien ships fell to human weapons. The last Corvin vessel tried to escape, but engineer Tony Walsh had made modifications to the Horizon's engines. The human ship was faster than it looked, and the alien captain found himself trapped between the colony's defense platforms and Morrison's guns. The final explosion lit up the darkness of space, and the colonists on New Haven cheered over the communication channels. Morrison felt satisfaction but also worry. This victory would not stay secret for long, and he wondered what the aliens would do when they learned that humans were not as helpless as they seemed. Back on Earth, Admiral Rick Stone received Morrison's report in his underground command center. The facility was hidden beneath a mountain and contained the real heart of human military development. What the aliens saw was just the surface of human capability. Admiral Stone walked through halls lined with prototype weapons and experimental ships. Colonel Lisa Perry met him at the entrance to the main war room, where screens showed the locations of every human vessel in space. Most of the icons were green, but some showed red. Those were the ships that the aliens did not know about. How many more fake pirate attacks have we detected? Stone asked. 17 in the past week, Perry replied. The Corvin Empire is getting bolder. They think they're testing weak prey, but they're about to learn how wrong they are. Stone nodded and looked at the central display, which showed the galaxy divided into zones of control. Human space looked small compared to the alien empires, but appearances could be deceiving. Hidden throughout the outer systems were mining stations that were actually shipyards, cargo vessels that carried weapons instead of supplies, research facilities disguised as agricultural colonies. Contact Dr. Mitchell, Stone ordered. Tell him it's time to move to Phase 2 of the project. Dr. Sam Mitchell received the message in his laboratory on Europa. Around him, teams of scientists worked on technologies that would have seemed like magic to the aliens who had dismissed humanity. The key breakthrough had come from studying how human brains worked differently from alien minds. Lieutenant Carter had discovered something remarkable during her analysis of alien psychology. Every known species thought in patterns. They followed logical progressions and made decisions based on established protocols. This made them predictable, but it also made them vulnerable. Humans were different. Human minds could hold contradictory ideas at the same time. They could make intuitive leaps that skipped logical steps. They could see solutions that computers would calculate as impossible. This cognitive flexibility was what aliens saw as chaos, but it was actually humanity's greatest strength. Dr. Mitchell had used this insight to design weapons and tactics that alien minds could not comprehend. Human ships could change their behavior in the middle of a battle. Human weapons could adapt to new situations without being reprogrammed. Human strategies could shift from defense to offense to retreat and back again without following any predictable pattern. The galaxy thought. It knew what humans were capable of based on their observations of human civilization. They saw the wars and conflicts and concluded that humans were violent but disorganized. They watched human technology develop and assumed it was crude but functional. They studied human behavior and decided it was chaotic but harmless. What they did not see was the hidden strength that came from that chaos. Human unpredictability was not a weakness to be overcome, but a weapon to be used. Human emotional thinking was not a flaw to be corrected, but an advantage to be exploited. Human tendency toward violence was not a problem to be solved, but a tool to be directed. As reports of successful defense actions came in from across human space, Admiral Stone began to smile. The aliens wanted to test human defenses with their fake pirate attacks. They were about to learn that humanity had been preparing for real war since the day they were rejected by the Galactic Council. The mock battles in the outer colonies were just the beginning. Soon the aliens would discover that the species they had dismissed as primitive primates had teeth and claws they never suspected. The galaxy had mocked humanity, but that mockery was about to become the biggest mistake in galactic history. Stone looked at the star charts one more time and made his decision. "Send the signal to all fleet commanders," he said. "Operation Surprise is now active. Let's show the galaxy what humans can really do." War Marshal Grexlock stood on the bridge of his flagship and watched the tactical display with satisfaction. 300 Corvan warships hung in space around him, the largest fleet the Empire had assembled in decades. Behind them came support vessels from the other galactic powers who had agreed that the human problem needed to be solved permanently. The decision had been made after reports came back from the border skirmishes. Human forces had somehow managed to defeat every pirate raid sent against them. Worse, they had done it with technology that should not have existed. The Galactic Council had voted unanimously that humanity posed a threat to galactic stability and needed to be eliminated. "Target is New Terra," Grexlock announced to his fleet commanders. "Intelligence reports indicate this is their largest colony world with over 50 million humans. Once we destroy their main population center, the rest will surrender quickly." The plan was simple and had worked for thousands of years. Overwhelming force applied to a single target would break the enemy's will to fight. Humans would see their biggest colony burning and would realize they could not resist the combined might of 5 galactic civilizations. The Corvan fleet dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the New Terra system and immediately activated their sensors. What they found was not what they expected. Instead of a poorly defended colony world, they detected massive energy signatures throughout the system. Ships that had been hidden behind planets and asteroids began to power up their weapons. "Sir, we're reading over 400 human vessels," reported the tactical officer with confusion in his voice. "That's impossible. Intelligence said they only had 50 ships in total." Grexlock felt his confidence waver but forced himself to remain calm. Even if the humans had more ships than expected, Corvan technology was still superior. One Corvan battleship could destroy 10 human vessels. The math still favored the Empire. Admiral Rick Stone sat in the command chair of the UES Defiance and watched the alien fleet approach. His ship was one of the new generation vessels that had been built in secret over the past 3 years. From the outside it looked like a standard human cruiser, but inside it carried weapons that no alien had ever imagined. "All ships report ready," announced Fleet Captain Ben Rogers from his position at the communications station. "The hidden fleet is in position and waiting for your orders." Stone nodded and opened a channel to the Corvan flagship. When War Marshal Grexlock's scaled face appeared on the screen, Stone could see the alien's surprise at finding organized resistance. "This is Admiral Stone of the Human Defense Fleet," Stone said calmly. "You have entered human space with hostile intent. I'm giving you one chance to withdraw peacefully." Grexlock's laugh was like rocks grinding together. "You cannot be serious, human. You face the combined might of the galaxy. Surrender now and your deaths will be quick." "I tried to be polite," Stone replied and cut the transmission. He turned to his weapons officer. "All ships open fire. Show them what humans can do when we're angry." The battle that followed changed the course of galactic history. The first salvo from the human fleet tore through the Corvan formation like paper. Kinetic weapons that traveled at significant fractions of light speed punched through shields and armor that had never been penetrated before. Ships that had ruled space lanes for centuries exploded in balls of plasma and debris. But the real shock came when the humans revealed their true tactical capabilities. Major Kate Adams led a squadron of fighters that moved like nothing the aliens had ever seen. Human pilots used their intuition and reflexes to perform maneuvers that alien computers calculated as impossible. Adams rolled her fighter through a gap between two Corvin destroyers and fired a torpedo that split into 6 smaller warheads. Each warhead used different technology to attack different ship systems. One targeted the shield generators, another went for the engines, a third aimed for life support. The Corvin ship died from multiple system failures before its crew even understood they were under attack. The alien fleet tried to respond with their traditional tactics, but human unpredictability made their strategies useless. Human ships would attack in formation, then suddenly break apart and strike from 12 different directions. They would focus fire on one target, then instantly switch to another. They would charge straight at the enemy, then vanish behind cover that they had created with their own weapons. Director Alan Cross watched the battle from his hidden command center and smiled at the data flowing across his screens. For years, his intelligence service had been studying alien psychology and had discovered their greatest weakness. Aliens thought in patterns and followed rules even in combat. Humans threw out the rulebook and fought with pure creativity. "Sir, the Corvin commander is trying to reorganize his fleet," reported one of his analysts. "He's pulling back to form a defensive sphere." "Predicted behavior," Cross replied. "Send the signal to activate Phase 2. Throughout the new Terra system, cargo ships that had been drifting quietly near asteroid fields suddenly came to life. Their hulls split open to reveal that they were not cargo vessels at all, but weapons platforms loaded with missiles. The surprise attack caught the retreating Corvin fleet from behind and turned their organized withdrawal into a panicked rout. War Marshal Grexlock felt terror for the first time in his military career as he watched his magnificent fleet being torn apart by primitive humans. This was not how war was supposed to work. The superior force was supposed to win through better technology and tactics, but human weapons ignored the rules and human strategies made no sense. "All ships retreat," he ordered as another battleship exploded off his starboard bow. "We cannot win this battle." But retreat proved impossible. Human ships were faster than they had any right to be, and human pilots seemed to anticipate every move the Corvins made. Worse, the humans showed no concept of honorable warfare. They targeted life support systems instead of weapons. They used kamikaze attacks that no civilized species would consider. They fought like wild animals backed into a corner. Professor Jack Green had studied alien cultures for decades and had designed the human battle plan specifically to exploit alien psychological weaknesses. Corvin honor codes prevented them from using certain tactics that humans employed without hesitation. Seltharian logic made them predictable in combat situations. Ethereal energy beings could not understand the human willingness to sacrifice ships and lives for victory. The battle reached its climax when Admiral Stone ordered his most desperate tactic. 3 human battleships loaded with antimatter charges flew straight at the Corvin flagship. Grexlock's gunners managed to destroy 2 of them, but the third ship made it through his defenses. The explosion lit up the entire system and took out half the remaining Corvin fleet. In the silence that followed, Stone opened a communication channel that reached every alien ship in the system. "This is Admiral Stone," he said in a voice like ice. "Any ship that does not surrender in the next 60 seconds will be destroyed. The choice is yours." Most of the surviving alien vessels powered down their weapons immediately. A few tried to run, but human pursuit ships caught them before they could escape the system. Within an hour, the largest fleet in Corvin history had been reduced to a handful of crippled vessels and scattered debris. The news of the defeat spread across the galaxy faster than light itself. The impossible had happened. Humans had not just survived an attack by a superior force, but had completely destroyed it. The species that the Galactic Council had dismissed as primitive had proven themselves to be the deadliest warriors the galaxy had ever seen. On Nexus Station, High Counselor Zexthon received the battle reports with growing horror. The crystal being had lived for over 1,000 years and had never seen anything like the tactical displays from New Terra. Human forces had used strategies that violated every principle of civilized warfare. Emergency sessions were called, as the 5 great civilizations tried to understand what had happened. How had the humans hidden so many ships? Where had their advanced technology come from? Most importantly, what were they going to do next? The answer came in the form of a transmission from Earth that reached every inhabited world in the galaxy. Fleet Captain Rogers appeared on screens everywhere with a simple message that sent shockwaves through alien space. "This is the Human Defense Fleet," Rogers said. "You attacked us without provocation and learned the price of underestimating our species. Any further aggression against human territories or human citizens will result in total retaliation. We did not seek this war, but we will finish it if necessary. The galaxy wanted to see what humans are capable of. Now you know." High Counselor Zexathan stood before the emergency assembly of the Galactic Council and felt something he had never experienced before. Fear. The crystal being's form flickered, with unstable light patterns as he addressed the gathered representatives of 5 civilizations. "The human threat is greater than we calculated," he announced to the chamber. "They have hidden military capabilities and shown tactical abilities that exceed our understanding. We must act decisively before they can threaten our core worlds." The other council members agreed with unusual speed. The ethereal collective representative pulsed with angry red energy as she spoke. "These physical beings have violated the natural order. They must be eliminated completely to restore galactic stability." War Marshal Grexlock, one of the few survivors of the New Terra battle, rose from his position with visible effort. His scales bore scars from the human attack, and his voice carried barely controlled rage. "I have seen what they can do in battle. They fight without honor and use tactics that no civilized species would consider. We cannot allow them to exist." The vote was unanimous and swift. Every major power in the galaxy committed their full military strength to what they called the final solution. The largest armada in galactic history began to assemble. 10,000 ships from 5 different civilizations united by their fear of humanity. On Earth, Director Alan Cross sat in his underground command center and watched the alien fleet grow through spy satellites hidden throughout galactic space. His intelligence network had been planning for this moment since the day humans were rejected by the Council. "They're doing exactly what we predicted," Cross told Admiral Stone as they studied the tactical displays. "Every major civilization is committing their home defense fleets to the attack on Earth. Their worlds have never been more vulnerable." Stone nodded and activated the holographic display that showed human forces spread across the galaxy. What the aliens did not know was that human ships had been infiltrating their space for months. Disguised as merchants and refugees, human vessels had positioned themselves near every major alien world. General Mike Thompson joined them in the command center after arriving from the Mars training facilities. His ground forces had been preparing for exactly this scenario using tactics that no alien military could comprehend. "The evacuation of Earth is complete," Thompson reported. 47 billion humans have been relocated to hidden colonies throughout the outer systems. Earth is now the largest trap in galactic history. Professor Jack Green had spent years studying alien psychology and had designed the human strategy around their predictable behavior patterns. Aliens thought like conquerors. They focused on single objectives and followed established military doctrine. Humans thought like survivors. When threatened with extinction, they struck back at everything simultaneously. Captain Nina Fox received her orders, while her stealth ship drifted in the shadow of a Zeltharian moon. Her vessel was one of hundreds that had been hidden throughout alien space for exactly this moment. The technology that made it possible came from human ingenuity, combined with stolen alien science. "All units, this is Control," came the encrypted message. "Operation Retribution is now active. Repeat, Operation Retribution is active. Show them what happens when you threaten human survival." The alien armada approached Earth expecting to find a desperate last stand by the remnants of human civilization. Instead, they found empty space and automated defense platforms. The homeworld of humanity appeared to be abandoned except for energy signatures that suggested massive weapons systems. High Counselor Zexathan felt unease as his flagship entered the solar system. Something was wrong, but he could not identify what it was. Earth hung in space like a blue marble, but it seemed too quiet for a world that should be fighting for its survival. "Scan for human ships," he ordered his tactical officer. "They must be hiding somewhere in the system." Before the alien could respond, space around Earth erupted in explosions. Hidden weapons platforms revealed themselves and opened fire on the incoming fleet. But these were not the desperate shots of a dying civilization. They were coordinated strikes designed to channel the alien formation into predetermined kill zones. The aliens pressed forward because they had no choice. 10,000 ships could not be stopped by a few hidden guns, but as they advanced, more weapons revealed themselves. Asteroids split open to show missile launchers. Space stations that had seemed abandoned came online with energy weapons. Even Earth's moon opened up to reveal massive rail guns that fired projectiles at incredible speeds. Admiral Stone watched from his command ship hidden behind Jupiter and smiled at the tactical display. The alien fleet was walking into the largest ambush in military history. But the real surprise was yet to come. At exactly the same moment across the galaxy, human ships revealed themselves near every major alien world. The vessels that had pretended to be merchants and refugees dropped their disguises and showed their true nature as warships loaded with weapons designed specifically to destroy alien infrastructure. On the Corvin homeworld, Captain Fox led her squadron in an attack that targeted the planet's orbital shipyards. Human weapons had been designed to exploit the specific weaknesses of Corvin architecture. The empire that had ruled through military might watch their construction facilities burn in minutes. The Zeltharian crystal cities proved vulnerable to sonic weapons that shattered their silicon-based structures. Human ships broadcast frequencies that made the crystalline buildings resonate until they collapsed into glittering dust. A civilization that had considered itself intellectually superior found their greatest achievements reduced to rubble. The Ethereal Collective discovered that humans had developed energy-dampening fields that could trap their pure energy forms. Beings who had thought themselves beyond physical harm found themselves contained and helpless as human forces dismantled their power networks. The hegemonies biotechnology meant nothing when faced with human chemical weapons. General Thompson's ground forces used viruses designed specifically to target the insectoid aliens' unique biology. Hive worlds that had existed for millennia fell silent as their populations succumbed to engineered plagues. The Stellar Federation's tactical computers could not calculate proper responses to human strategies that changed constantly. Their blue-skinned commanders watched in horror as human forces struck their worlds using plans that made no logical sense, but proved devastatingly effective. Back at Earth, the alien armada found itself trapped between the planet's defenses and human ships that appeared from every direction. Admiral Stone had been hiding his main fleet in the outer system and now brought them in for the killing blow. "All ships, this is Admiral Stone," he broadcast to his forces. "These aliens came here to destroy our home. Show them the price of threatening human survival." The battle became a slaughter. Human ships used tactics that violated every alien concept of honorable warfare. They rammed enemy vessels with ships loaded with explosives. They targeted life support systems instead of weapons. They coordinated attacks that prioritized psychological impact over military efficiency. War Marshal Grexlock felt his sanity slipping as he watched the largest fleet in galactic history being torn apart by primitives who should not have been able to threaten a single battleship. This was not how war worked in the civilized galaxy. The superior force was supposed to win through better technology and organization. "We must retreat," he told High Counselor Zexthon over the communication link. "We cannot win this battle." But retreat was impossible. Human forces had surrounded the alien fleet and were systematically destroying every ship that tried to escape. Worse, reports were coming in from across the galaxy that every alien homeworld was under simultaneous attack. Professor Green had designed the strategy around a simple principle. When someone threatens to exterminate your species, you do not just defend yourself, you eliminate the threat permanently. The aliens had come to destroy humanity, so humanity would destroy them first. High Counselor Zexthon's flagship was one of the last to die. As human boarding parties cut through his hull, the crystal being finally understood the mistake the galaxy had made. They had dismissed humans as chaotic and unpredictable, without realizing that chaos and unpredictability were exactly what made them so dangerous. In his final moments, Zexthon transmitted a message to any alien ships that might still be listening. "We were wrong about the humans," he said, as explosions tore through his bridge. "They are not primitive. They are apex predators, and we awakened them." The Battle of Earth ended with the complete destruction of the alien armada. Not a single ship escaped to carry word of the defeat back to their homeworlds. But it did not matter because those worlds were already burning under human attacks. Admiral Stone stood on his bridge and looked at Earth hanging peacefully in space. The blue marble that had given birth to humanity was safe, but the cost had been enormous. The galaxy's 5 great civilizations were either destroyed or crippled beyond recovery. "Sir, we're receiving surrender requests from 17 different alien species," reported his communications officer. They're asking for terms. Stone nodded slowly. The war was over, but the galaxy would never be the same. 6 months after the war ended, President Sarah Wallace stood before the rebuilt Galactic Council chamber on Nexus Station and looked out at a very different galaxy. Where once 5 great civilizations had ruled with arrogance and superiority, now scattered remnants of alien species sat quietly in the lower seats while humans occupied the positions of power. The Corvan Empire no longer existed. Their military worlds had been glassed by human weapons, and their surviving population lived in refugee camps under human administration. The proud warriors who had dismissed human military capabilities now worked in labor camps rebuilding the infrastructure they had helped destroy. What remained of the Zeltharian crystal? Cities lay in ruins across dozens of worlds. The beings who had claimed intellectual superiority over humans now served as research subjects in laboratories, where human scientists studied their unique biology. Their vast libraries had been seized and their technology absorbed into human databases. The ethereal collective had been reduced to a few hundred energy beings trapped in containment fields. The creatures who had thought themselves beyond physical harm now powered human space stations as living batteries. Their pure energy forms proved useful for generating the massive amounts of power needed by human industrial complexes. The hegemony of Voss was gone completely. Human chemical weapons had been too effective against their insect biology, and their hive worlds had fallen silent within days of the first attacks. A few scattered individuals survived in human research facilities, but their civilization was extinct. The Stellar Federation had surrendered, early enough to avoid complete destruction, but their blue-skinned population now lived under human occupation. Their tactical computers and strategic databases had been confiscated, and their military commanders served as advisors to human forces learning alien battle doctrines. President Wallace began her address to the new council with words that echoed throughout the galaxy. 6 months ago, you called us primitive. You dismissed us as barely evolved primates who had stumbled onto space travel by accident. You attacked us because you thought we were weak and divided. She paused and looked directly at the surviving alien representatives who sat in the chambers where their predecessors had once ruled. You were wrong about everything. We were not primitive. We were adaptive. We were not weak. We were underestimated. We were not divided. We were angry. Admiral Jake Morrison, promoted after his victories in the outer colonies, stood at the military section of the chamber. His uniform bore ribbons representing battles that had become legend throughout human space. The man who had once been mocked by alien diplomats now commanded the largest fleet in galactic history. The new galactic order is simple, President Wallace continued. Humanity will ensure peace and stability throughout known space. Any species that threatens human citizens or human interests will face the same fate as those who came before. We did not seek galactic domination, but we will not hesitate to use it. Ambassador Helen Brooks, who had endured the humiliation of humanity's first council meeting, now sat in the highest diplomatic position in the galaxy. The woman who had been laughed at by alien representatives now decided the fate of entire civilizations. Some of you may wonder if humans will prove to be benevolent rulers, Brooks said as she addressed the assembly. The answer depends entirely on your behavior. Species that accept human authority and contribute to galactic stability will be treated fairly. Those who resist or plot rebellion will discover why the galaxy's former great powers no longer exist. The transformation of galactic civilization had happened with shocking speed. Human technology that had been hidden for years was now deployed openly throughout space. Ships that could cross the galaxy in days. Weapons that could destroy planets. Industrial complexes that could build entire fleets in months. But the most profound change was psychological. For thousands of years, the galaxy had been ruled by species who thought in patterns and followed established protocols. Now it was controlled by humans who adapted, constantly and improvised solutions to every problem. Dr. Sam Mitchell had been promoted to head of Galactic Technology Development and his research. Teams worked around the clock to integrate human and alien sciences. The combination produced innovations that neither species could have achieved alone. Human creativity combined with alien knowledge created technologies that seemed like magic. We have detected 17 new species trying to make contact with human space, reported Director Alan Cross during a private briefing with the president. They've apparently been monitoring our broadcasts and want to establish diplomatic relations. President Wallace smiled at the irony. When humans had first achieved faster-than-light travel, they had spent years trying to get the attention of galactic civilization. Now that they ruled the galaxy, new species were desperate to make contact with them. "What should we tell them?" Cross asked. "The same thing we told the Council," Wallace replied. "We're human. We're here, and we're not going anywhere." Captain Nina Fox had been assigned to patrol the outer rim where new species were beginning to appear. Her stealth ship could monitor alien transmissions without being detected, and what she heard made her laugh. The new species were studying human tactical doctrines and trying to understand how such a young civilization had conquered the galaxy so quickly. They would never understand because they thought, like the aliens who had come before them, they assumed that superior technology automatically meant military victory. They believed that larger numbers guaranteed success. They thought that following established strategies would lead to triumph. What they could not comprehend was that humans fought with desperation and creativity. When faced with extinction, humans did not just defend themselves. They eliminated threats completely and permanently. The galaxy had learned this lesson too late, but the new species still had time to avoid the same mistake. Colonel Lisa Perry commanded human ground forces throughout the occupied territories, and she had learned to read alien psychology better than most xenobiologists. The surviving populations were beginning to adapt to human rule, but some still harbored dreams of rebellion. The key is to make them understand that resistance is not just futile, but counterproductive. Perry explained to her officers, "Every act of rebellion results in harsher restrictions. Every sign of cooperation brings better treatment." Eventually, they learn that working with humans is the only logical choice. Professor Jack Green had been appointed to head the new Galactic Studies Institute where alien cultures were analyzed and cataloged. His research had revealed a disturbing pattern. Every major galactic civilization had followed the same path of technological advancement and social development. They had all become predictable and rigid. "Humans are different because we never stopped being chaotic," Green wrote in his final report. "Other species evolved beyond their survival instincts, but we retained the flexibility that made us apex predators. When they thought they had moved beyond the need for violence, we were perfecting it. The galaxy had changed, but humanity itself had changed too. The species that had once been divided by national and cultural differences was now united by their shared victory over alien oppression. Humans from every nation and background worked together to maintain their new galactic empire. Fleet Captain Ben Rogers commanded the patrol fleets that maintained order throughout human space. His ships were crewed by humans from dozens of different cultures, but they all shared the same pride in what their species had accomplished. We went from being the galaxy's joke to being its ruler in less than a year. Rogers told his crew during a ceremony celebrating the war's anniversary. "We did it not because we were the strongest or the smartest, but because we were the most stubborn. When they told us we didn't belong, we proved them wrong in the most decisive way possible." President Wallace concluded her address to the Galactic Council with words that would be remembered for centuries. "You mocked us because you thought chaos was weakness. You attacked us because you thought unpredictability was a flaw. You tried to destroy us because you thought emotion was a disadvantage." She stood and her voice carried to every corner of the chamber and beyond, to every world in the galaxy. "You were wrong about everything. Our chaos is what made us adaptive. Our unpredictability is what made us dangerous. Our emotions are what made us fight harder than you thought possible." The chamber fell silent as her words sank in. The aliens who had once laughed at human diplomatic requests now understood the price of their arrogance. The species who had dismissed human capabilities now lived under human authority. "The galaxy wanted to see what humans were capable of," President Wallace said in closing. "Now you know. We are capable of anything when our survival is threatened. We are capable of everything when our freedom is at stake. And we are capable of ruling the galaxy when others prove themselves unworthy of the responsibility." As the session ended and the representatives filed out, Ambassador Brooks remained in the chamber looking at the empty seats where the great alien powers had once sat. The irony was not lost on her. Humanity had never wanted to conquer the galaxy. They had simply wanted to be accepted as equals.